Okay, since the last video I threw up, I've made a few improvements. I found me a damn decent camera mount that'll kind of help stabilize this whole situation. Went to AutoZone and got the lifetime alternator. And that bearing right there is what has failed in our old one. And I went ahead and kept the old one. The core charge was only $15. Primarily because this one says Delco Remy. Okay, this one essentially says Chinesium. Even though it's a lifetime warranty, I want to hold on to that old alternator in case I decide to restore this truck, which is still a fair piece down the road. I really like the lines of this truck. I've just always liked the design of this truck. It's really simple as far as the lines go. And I feel that this truck will eventually, that design will eventually fall into the realm of the 57 Chevy as a classic. Excuse me, I got a little cold here. But we went and got a new alternator. And we're going to go ahead and install it. Alright, here, let's get some of this stuff out of the way real quick. In the first video, I detailed the tools that are required and the bolts that need to be removed. And then once we get it installed, we'll I've got my voltmeter and my load tester. And we'll go ahead and make sure it's alternating right. So, all right, make sure your battery is disconnected and our negative is disconnected, so we don't have to worry about this. This wire is hot directly to the battery, and you simply must disconnect the battery before you do any kind of work like this. All right, and the bushing needs to be bumped out. Hold on. Okay, this particular installation, and a lot of them you'll encounter this, there's a bushing right here. Okay, and the concept is this is the designed perimeter for the mounting flange. And then this, in earlier applications, was a swivel. Okay, for the alternator, so you could adjust the belts. But the problem is that measurement is not necessarily the same on, I mean, this is a brand new alternator. Anyway, so the way I do it, I get me a pry bar and a hammer and tap that bushing back in. That'll open up that gap there, and then this guy will fall right in like that. Okay. We want to get all our bolts started, all the bolts started before we tighten any of them. Okay. All right. Let's see. Can y'all see that? Yeah. So anyway, that bolt is started. Okay, and we've got two different lengths for the other bolts, and this one's going through a casting. This one's going through sheet metal. So I'm going to put the longer one through the casting. And I would review the other video, but it's uploading at the moment. I don't want to reach in there and try and derail that. So it's only 3 bolts though. All right, so come on. All right. So we'll start off with these smaller ones. Get them tight, and that's the wrong socket. Or at least it feels wrong. Why would it feel wrong? It shouldn't be. Let's old ratchet. And it's a shame Sears sold the Craftsman brand. Used to be you could rebuild these old Craftsmans. And we've got a steel bolt going into aluminum, so we don't want to tighten it too tight, but we do want it tight. So don't get too aggressive. Alright, so that's bolt number 2. And here's the last one. Oh, come on. Yeah. You weren't as much of a pig coming off. There we go. Tired old socket ratchet. This particular set of sockets was almost the first thing I ever bought off a Snap-on tool truck. Alright, this is the larger diameter bolt, so we can snug it a little bit harder, stiffer. Okay. So it's mounted. Just that quick. Now all we gotta do is reconnect the wires in the belt. And this is a simple plug-in right there. I want to visually inspect it real quick, make sure it's not corroded. And it's just one wire. I mean, there are certain applications where there'd be more wires coming out of it. That's why it's so big. Now we'll go ahead and reconnect the charging wire. Okay, and that's a steel stud with a steel nut, so we can snug that pretty good. It is a small diameter though. Okay, that's tight. Got a little rubber boot that we got to get back on there. Come on. All right. So now we're wired. We've got all our wires hooked up. Now we're going to play with this belt again. All right. And and always you want to check all of your pulleys while you got the belt loose. Make sure that there's no excessive play. And then you want to make sure that the belt is in the grooves. Alright. And then you're going to load this spring. And also, sometimes it's easier pull the belt over a large diameter pull, but there we go. Boom. It's on there. The alternator's installed. Okay, so now reconnect the battery, and we're good to go here. And get our testing equipment out. Got our voltmeter right here. Let's see, how does this work? It's been a while. All right. Got a little stand kind of thing that I haven't used in forever. Okay, here we go. All right, so we'll set that right there so you can see. See if we can connect. Let's see, I got some jumper wire things here. Well, in the shed, these look like black and yellow, but they're actually green and yellow. We're going to make the green ground. And they're old. They got corrosion on them. They might not work. So, let's see, that's ground. Let's find us a spot on the positive somewhere. There we go. Try that like that. Let's see what we get. There you go. We got 12.5 volts. All right, so we're going to make sure that none of the wires get near the belt and that that positive doesn't get near ground. Hopefully you can see that meter. And you can. So let's go ahead and start her up. Please understand, this is just an old Chevrolet pickup truck, but the most impressive thing to me is that this engine assembly, including that alternator, made it 437,000 miles, and that valve cover has never been off on either side. It's got the original timing chain in it. It's got the original AC compressor that still works. Here we go. Come on. Okay, and that meter jumped right up to 14 volts, so that alternator's charging good. What we're going to do is load test it. So we got 14 1/4 volts here, 14.5 there. Alright, this is a carbon pile, and as we turn the knob, it compresses that carbon pile and will load the electrical system, and it will display the load over here. Alright, so we put 250 amps on it. Let's try that one more time. Let's see what the voltage goes to. 250 down to 10.25 volts. It's probably only like a 80 or 90 amp alternator. Let's let's just go with 100. Alright, here's 100 amps, and it's still putting out 12 volts. So anyway, I'm going to call this guy good. Alright guys, if y'all attempt to do this kind of work yourself, the number one rule, is to disconnect the battery before you touch anything, after you've made your diagnosis, okay? Because you just do not want to get a wrench between a hot wire and ground. I've seen people do that, and the wrench welds itself in place, and shortly after that you have a fire. So number one, disconnect the battery. Get your installation work done, and then reconnect the battery and do an ops check. Alright, talk to y'all later.